You've probably spent hours playing with mods. Maybe you've transformed Skyrim into a photorealistic fantasy world or turned Minecraft into a complex industrial simulator. But what if I told you that every hour you spend enjoying those mods is built on a system that exploits the very people who created them? Today, we're going to be diving deep into the dark side of video game modding, how an industry worth billions has learned to profit off free labor, and why the modding community might be accidentally enabling some of gaming's worst practices. This isn't just about free DLC, this is about systemic exploitation disguised as community passion. Before we get into the controversy, let's establish what we're talking about. Modding, short for modification, is the practice of players creating custom content for video games. This can range from simple texture swaps to make your character's armor look cooler to complete overhauls that transform a game into something entirely different. On the surface, modding seems like a perfect symbiosis. Players get more content, developers get extended game lifespans and increased sales, and aspiring developers get valuable experience. It's a win-win-win situation, right? Well, not exactly. As we'll explore today, this seemingly perfect relationship has a much darker underbelly that the gaming industry would prefer you didn't think too hard about. Let's start with the success stories because modding genuinely has created some incredible things. Counter-Strike began as a mod for Half-Life in 1999. Two college students, Min Lee and Jess Cliff, created what would become one of the most influential competitive shooters of all time. Valve eventually hired them and turned their mod into a standalone game that generated billions in revenue. Then there's Defense of the Ancient, or Dota, which started as a mod for Warcraft 3. This single mod essentially created the entire MOBA genre, spawning games like League of Legends and Dota 2. The economic impact is staggering. League of Legends alone generates over $1 billion annually and brought us KDA. These success stories aren't outliers. Team Fortress started as a Quake mod before Valve acquired the team. Gary's mod began as a physics sandbox for Half-Life 2 and became so popular that Valve published it as a standalone game. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds evolved from DayZ. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, or PUBG, evolved from DayZ Modwork, which itself was an Arma mod. But here's where things get interesting. For every Counter-Strike success story, there are thousands of mods that generate enormous value for game companies without the creators seeing a penny. Skyrim has over 60,000 mods on Nexus Mods alone. These mods have kept an 11-year-old game relevant, driving continued sales and even enabling Bethesda to re-release the same game multiple times across different platforms. The Thomas the Tank Engine Dragon replacement mod for Skyrim has been downloaded over 800,000 times. The unofficial Skyrim patch, which fixes hundreds of bugs Bethesda never addressed, has been downloaded over 20 times. These numbers represent massive engagement and value, but the creators, they work for free. This brings us to one of the most egregious ways the gaming industry exploits modding communities, using them as unpaid quality assurance teams. Bethesda games have become the poster child for this practice, but they're far from alone. When Skyrim launched in 2011, it was notoriously buggy. Quest-breaking glitches, performance issues, save corruption problems, the list went on and on for pages. Rather than dedicating resources to fix these issues, Bethesda essentially shrugged and waited for the community to do it for them. The unofficial Skyrim patch project has been ongoing for over a decade, with volunteers working thousands of hours to fix what a billion-dollar company couldn't be bothered to address. This isn't incompetence either, it's strategy. Why spend money on post-launch support when passionate fans will do it for free? Bethesda has repeated this pattern with Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Fallout 4, and Fallout 76. Each release comes with the implicit understanding that the community will handle their cleanup of their mess. But Bethesda isn't unique. The Witcher 3 had numerous bugs that were fixed by community patches before CD Projekt Red addressed them officially. Cyberpunk 2077's launch disaster saw modders working to fix fundamental issues while the developers focused on console optimization. City Skylines launched with limited content compared to its predecessor, clearly expecting modders to fill the gaps. This creates a perverse incentive structure. Why polish your game to perfection when you know the community will handle it for you? Why include comprehensive content when volunteers will create it for free? The end result is that paying customers receive incomplete products subsidized by unpaid labor. Beyond bug fixes, modding has become a content generation machine that companies exploit without compensation. Let's look at some numbers that'll make your head spin. Minecraft has over 100,000 mods available across various platforms. These range from simple quality of life improvements to complete overhauls that add hundreds of hours of content. The Feed the Beast mod pack collection alone has been downloaded over 50 million times. Each of these downloads represents a player choosing to continue engaging with Minecraft rather than moving to a competitor. The economic value alone is immense. Minecraft generates over $350 million annually, and a significant portion of that continued revenue is directly attributable to mod-driven engagement. Yet the modders creating this value, they work for free, often spending their own money on servers and development tools. The Sims series has built its entire post-launch strategy around user-generated content. The Sims 4 has over 300,000 custom content items available, from clothing and furniture to complete gameplay overhauls. EA charges $40 for expansion packs that often contain less products than what dedicated modders release for free. The company has literally built a business model around charging premium prices for official content while benefiting from an ocean of free alternatives that keep players engaged with that base game. Grand Theft Auto's modding scene has created everything from realistic police simulators to complete zombie apocalypse overhauls. These mods have kept the game relevant for nearly a decade, contributing to its status as one of the best-selling games of all time. Take-Two Interactive has made billions from continued sales and microtransactions in GTA Online, substantially aided by the single-player modding scene that keeps the game in public consciousness. Here's where things get really insidious. The gaming industry has discovered that modding communities serve as an incredible source of free talent evaluation and training. Think of it as unpaid internship programs that last years and cost companies nothing. Aspiring game developers are told that modding is essential for breaking into the industry. Build a portfolio, they're advised. Show your skills through mods. This isn't bad advice. I just want to be clear about that. Many successful developers did start this way, but it's created a system where the industry expects free labor as the price of entry. Consider the complexity involved in creating a quality mod. 3D modeling, texture work, programming, level design, sound editing, quest scripting. These are professional skills that normally command professional salaries. Yet, modders are expected to develop and demonstrate these skills for free, often for years, just for a chance to maybe get noticed by a company. The Falskar mod for Skyrim took 19-year-old Alexander Valecki over 2,000 hours to create. It added over 20 hours of content with professional quality voice acting, original music, and complex quest lines. The mod was downloaded over 3 million times and earned Valecki a job at Bungie. Success story, right? But consider the math. 2,000 hours at even minimum wage would be over $15,000 in compensation. At professional game developer salary, we're talking about $60,000 worth of skilled labor. Valecki did get hired, but thousands of other modders create similarly impressive work and never get that opportunity. They've just donated tens of thousands of dollars worth of labor to companies that profit from their work. And yeah, it's a labor of love. They love doing it. But we still need to talk about this issue, because it also creates artificial scarcity in the job market. Why hire expensive developers when passionate fans will work for free? It's a form of wage suppression that affects the entire industry. In 2015, Bethesda and Valve decided to make the exploitation explicit by introducing paid mods to Steam Workshop. The program was supposed to let modders monetize their work, but the details revealed just how little these companies valued community contributions. Under the proposed system, modders would receive 25% of revenue from their work. Steam would take 30% and Bethesda would take 45%. Let that sink in. The people creating the content would receive the smallest share, while the platform holder and game developers who contributed nothing to the mod's development would split 75% of profits. Yes, I agree, it's better than nothing, but it still feels scummy. And it seems like other people agreed, because the backlash was immediate and severe. Within days, over 133,000 people signed a petition demanding the program's cancellation. The controversy revealed something crucial. When forced to put a price on modder contributions, companies revealed exactly how little they valued that labor. But the story doesn't end there. Bethesda learned from the PR disaster and introduced what's called the Creation Club, a curated paid mod system that technically hires modders as contractors. Sounds better, right? In practice, it's often worse. Creation Club content is typically commissioned at flat rates, far below what the development time would justify at professional wages. Modders are required to sign exclusive contracts, preventing them from releasing free versions of their work. Meanwhile, Bethesda continues to benefit from the vast ecosystem of free mods while siphoning off the most commercially viable creators into their low-paid contractor system. It's kind of the worst of both worlds, exploitation disguised as opportunity. And I guess better than nothing, but come on, we can do better. We can do better. The legal framework around modding is deliberately murky, and this ambiguity serves corporate interests far more than creator rights. Most games' end-user license agreements includes broad claims over user-generated content. By installing the game, you're often agreeing that any mods you create belong partially or entirely to the game's publisher. This legal structure means that when a mod becomes incredibly popular or innovative, companies can simply incorporate those ideas into official content without compensation or even credit. It's happened repeatedly across the industry. Minecraft's pistons were inspired by a popular mod called Red Power. The concept was integrated into the base game without crediting the original modder. The horse mechanics in Minecraft were directly inspired by Mo Creature's mod, again, without acknowledgement. While Mojang wasn't legally required to provide credit or compensation, the ethical implications are clear. The Sims 4 emotional system bears striking similarities to concepts explored in mods for previous games in the series. Many quality of life improvements in recent Bethesda games originated in community mods. Companies have essentially created a system where they can crowdsource innovation, then claim ownership of the best ideas. And here's the uncomfortable truth. The modding community has become complicit in its own exploitation. This isn't victim blaming here, it's just recognizing how the system has trained people to undervalue their own labor. Modding culture has developed strong anti-commercialization norms. Modders who attempt to monetize their work are often criticized by the community for selling out or being greedy. This attitude serves corporate interests perfectly. It maintains a large pool of free labor while stigmatizing attempts at fair compensation, and it allows these corporate companies to release half-assed games knowing the community will fix all their problems. The passion project narrative is particularly insidious. Modders are told they should work for the love of the craft, not the money. But this logic is never applied to the companies that profit from that passion. EA's executives aren't expected to work for free out of love for The Sims. Bethesda's programmers aren't asked to debug games as passion projects. Social media has amplified this dynamic as well. Modders often gain recognition and followers for their work, creating social capital that feels like compensation, but social media followers don't pay rent or buy groceries. The psychological reward of community recognition has become a substitute for actual economic value. This isn't to say that all modding should be commercialized or that passion projects are inherently problematic, but the current system has trained an entire community to view their valuable skills and time as worthless, which serves no one except the companies profiting from that devalued labor. The exploitation of modding communities, I think, reflects broader problems in the gaming industry's relationship with labor and creativity. It's part of a pattern that includes crunch culture, unpaid internships, the gig economyification of creative work. Game companies have learned to externalize costs wherever possible. Why maintain large internal teams when you can rely on community contributions? Why invest in comprehensive post-launch support when volunteers will handle it? Why develop extensive content when fans will create it for free? This approach has contributed to the homogenization of mainstream gaming. When companies know modders will fill content gaps and fix problems, there's less incentive to take creative risks or invest in polish. Why experiment with innovative mechanics when you can ship a serviceable base game and let the community iterate on improvements, right? The modding exploitation model also has influenced how companies think about user-generated content more broadly. Social media platforms, streaming services, and mobile app stores have all adopted similar approaches. Create a platform, encourage free content creation, then monetize that content while paying creators as little as possible. So what would a more equitable modding ecosystem look like? Several models could address these issues without destroying the collaborative spirit that makes modding special. Revenue sharing is the most obvious solution, but instead of the exploitative 25% that Bethesda proposed, what about 70-80% to creators, similar to what platforms like itch.io offer? Companies would still benefit from increased game sales and engagement while providing fair compensation for content creation. Now, I'm not a business major, so maybe this is a little too extreme, but I think we have to start somewhere. Some games are experimenting with better approaches. Kerbal Space Program's developers actively collaborated with modders, sometimes hiring them or officially incorporating their work with full credit and compensation. City Skylines has a revenue sharing model for official content, though it could be more generous. Legal reform could also help. Stronger protections for user-generated content creators, similar to those offered to other types of independent contractors, would prevent the most egregious forms of exploitation. Clear guidelines about attribution and compensation when mods inspire official content would also improve the situation. The community itself could drive change by normalizing fair compensation expectations. If modding communities started treating their work as valuable skilled labor deserving of fair payment, companies would be forced to adapt or lose access to that talent pipeline. As consumers, we're not powerless in this situation. Every time we download a mod, play a game primarily kept alive by community content, or support companies that exploit modding communities, we are participating in this system. But this doesn't mean we should stop enjoying mods or feel guilty about playing modded games, but we can be more conscious about supporting modders directly when at all possible. Many modders accept donations through platforms like Patreon or Ko-Fi. A few dollars can make a real difference to someone who spent hundreds of hours creating content for you to enjoy. We can also be more critical of companies that clearly exploit community labor. When a game launches in a broken state with the expectation that mods will fix it, that's worth calling out in reviews and forums. When companies appropriate mod ideas without credit, that's worth noting and criticizing. Supporting alternative platforms and distribution methods can also help. Indie games that treat modding communities fairly deserve our attention and money more than AAA titles that exploit those communities. Most importantly, we can change the conversation around modding. Instead of treating it as purely a hobbyist activity, we can recognize it as skilled creative labor that deserves respect. The modding community has created incredible value for the gaming industry and for players worldwide. The creativity, technical skill, and passion displayed by modders has enriched gaming in countless ways. But this contribution has been systematically undervalued and exploited by industry that profits enormously from unpaid labor. This isn't about destroying modding culture or commercializing every creative project. It's about recognizing the real value being created and ensuring that value is fairly distributed. And it's about calling out exploitation when we see it and demanding better from companies that have built business models on the backs of unpaid volunteers. So the next time you're enjoying a heavily modded Skyrim playthrough or exploring a custom Minecraft world, take a moment to appreciate not just the content, but the hundreds of hours of skilled labor that went into creating it. And maybe consider whether that person who created that experience deserves a little something more than just your enjoyment. The modding community has given the gaming industry incredible gifts, and it's time for that industry to return the favor with respect, recognition, and fair compensation while stopping the practice of releasing buggy shit. But until that happens, every mod download is a reminder of an incredible creative community being systematically exploited by the very industry they're helping to support. But what do you think? Have you experienced this exploitation as a modder or noticed it as a player? Let me know in the comments below. And what are some of your favorite mods?
Gun does nothing
what
to
games
that.
have you played that have been made infinitely better by mods? Are you a modder yourself? What are examples of some of the projects you've created? Drop that down in the comments below.
Please stop shooting it while I'm standing next to it.
Anyway, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Peace out. Bye.